So welcome back, everybody. This is an episode a lot of people have been waiting on for a while. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. We're all about DIY projects, from building our own house to shops to anything homestead related around the property. We probably cover on the channel. So this is going to be a several part series on building a pool deck right here. And in part one today, let me go ahead and explain what we're doing real quick, and then we need to dive right in and get to work before the sun gets any hotter. So today we're going to backfill underneath where the deck is to try to control erosion and water runoff. That's very important, and now's the time to do it. Otherwise, you're going to have to manually hand throw all the dirt underneath the deck. So you can see we have a pretty significant 3-foot drop from the back side of the porch to the pool, and we're going to connect these with a deck. But what that also means is we're going to kill off the grass in this area. When the deck is in place, it's going to block the sun out. So long story short, you're going to wind up with dirt under the deck. Now, in a future episode, we're going to put some landscape fabric down as well as some rock. Also in this episode, we have a very odd T-shaped deck layout right here. So we're going to have to, well, really try to figure out how we're going to do our post spacing. So we're going to lay the post out in this episode, concrete everything in it, allow it to set up, and then in part two, we'll start laying out all the deck joists and getting ready for composite decking that we're going to do. So in order to build up this big area right here, I'm probably going to bring a few trailer loads in. So not only for water mitigation and control do we want the dirt in here, but we also want to feather this slope out because we're about to come in and rock it landscape fabric, and we're wanting to put decorative pots and other landscape plants in here, and we don't want it on a heck of a slope in doing that. Probably the most important part of this entire video, our layout. It's critical. We want to get it nice and square and perfect. And because we're making a T-shaped deck, which is we're going to have a small walkway leading out to a big T that goes to a 20-foot wide deck. It's just a unique design that we want. We think it'll look good for landscaping. Well, we're going to have to be really critical because we're going to have posts laid out in all different areas. When you're laying out like what you see behind me, a square or rectangle type barn, it's much easier to pull one string line and set your post. But when those string lines are going to meet a certain area and then take off a completely different direction, well, we have more setup time with that. So that's leading us to the most critical step of part one right here, setting up our batter boards. We're actually going to pull string lines out, and we want a repeatable mark that we can leave so we can take the string up and down, dig, put our post holes in, set our post back, concrete everything in, pack it in however you're going to do it, and make sure everything is right where it needs to be and nothing shifts. So let me go ahead and get all this stuff set up. Oh, for my normal everyday viewers, you're probably noticing something brand new. I finally treated myself to my dream saw right here. It's a 12-inch DeWalt sliding dual compound miter saw. Actually, I'm glad I brought this up. See, you came here for more than just the batter boards. You can skip ahead if you want to, but talking to our everyday viewers right here. So what I've decided I'm gonna do, my other saw's acting up. It's got a bad switch inside. Y'all have seen me work on it before. I've just ordered a brand new switch, and I'm gonna rebuild that saw, and I'm gonna give it away to somebody because, well, y'all have been a blessing to us. Y'all donate and give so much. I need to be a blessing back to other people. So I need to give my time, some education, as well as let's give things of value back. You know, life is short. Again, I've been getting far more blessing than I'm gonna give back to somebody, but I've got somebody in mind I think will really enjoy that saw. After I rebuild the inside, it works perfectly fine, and it's a great saw. Y'all didn't know y'all were getting preached to today, did you? Oh, I also bought me a new fan. What you think about that? We gotta keep the sawdust blowing off Miss Tiffany's porch up here, and especially her outdoor kitchen. I have a feeling Ruger's gonna use this fan more than me. Woo, that thing's strong. What you think about that, buddy? How's that feel? Oh, it feels good, don't it? Yeah. All right, so let's cut us a point on the end of some old scrap 2x4s that I have because we're gonna drive these in the ground. Typically I do it at 45 degrees because that's what my saws have always had, but this one, oh, this one will go all the way to 60 degrees. That is nice. Make a sharper point. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Oh, wow. She's got some power. Another little tip, always have you a scrap wood bucket right beneath your saw. People are really bad about cutting, having a bunch of scraps laying on the floor, then you got all that cleanup to do at the end of the day. Whereas if you just throw your pieces straight in the bucket, as simple as this sounds, man, it makes cleanup nice. All right, so all we're doing is just cutting a nice sharp point on the end of some scrap lumber like that. And then I'm gonna cut this lumber to length where I need it. These heights will make a difference. I'll show you that here in just a second. Voila, one board ready to go. All right, next in my particular case, I want to find the center point. Luckily for me, that's already figured out. You see this relief cut line in the concrete right here? Well, that goes dead center of the house, dead center of the peak of the roof, and I centered the pool up. If you take a look at this, right on that line. That goes right there. So I set all this up earlier. So now we can use that line as a measurement or reference line. So now what we can do, we can measure off that reference line. I know that I want our deck opening. We're gonna do 8 foot from outside of post to outside of post here. And I chose 8 foot specifically because of the type of decking material going with a very expensive composite. I don't really want much waste at all. And you can get 16-foot lumber and 20-foot, well, composite boards, I should say, not lumber, for this particular company that we've ordered from. So I know I can take my 16-footers, cut them in half, and we're gonna have a minor little bit of trim on either side because we're gonna picture frame and border this composite decking out. This will make sense in the next episode. So all I gotta do is find the dead center of this line that I just showed you, the cut in the concrete, and I'm gonna come out 48 inches. Now this will make sense when I show you a little later, but I know because we're going to a T shape and the deck's gonna get even bigger out here, it's gonna be another 6 feet. So I'm just gonna use some 8-foot lumber that I already have and make a huge batter board right here. So I'm gonna measure 8 foot out from this mark that I just made over here. We ain't gotta be exact with this measurement right here. It's just marking where I'm gonna drive some stakes in the ground, pull it up. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. I'm going to come in about a foot inside that mark because I need that mark to line up with the top of my batter board. Just drive in this whole 2x4 right here. Do this again, I'm probably going to hit concrete once again. Well, go figure. I got to do this for the camera, and 3 out of 4 of these have hit concrete that is way out from the slab. All right, now we'll take us an 8-foot 2x4, just an old scrap one that I got laying around. Since I have concrete here, I'm just going to let this lay right on the concrete. It really does not matter. Those boards are in the ground again just to keep all this from shifting. This top of this board is going to be our new reference mark. So essentially what that's allowing me to do is use the pull cap as a batter board or a storyboard where I can mark those lines. Otherwise, what I would have to do if I didn't have this cap available to me out here to reference off of, I would just drive down 2 much longer stakes like you just see me to do, put a 2x4 across the top out here, and then make those reference lines on top of that 2x4. But I can avoid that now since I have this cap. So I've just found center over there. We're gonna come over here and mark 48 inches. And I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Now we should be able to square up all the way from the porch, all the way out to the pool itself. Okay, so you remember the lines that I put on the concrete? See it right here? I just transferred it up to my board. Now I'm gonna shoot a screw in on this side that we can wrap our string around. We'll lay the string across the top, right across that mark, and carry it to the 8-foot wide mark I just made over here on the pool. And we'll do the same thing across that board, over to there. Now we got our first 2 lines carried. Now we can set all of our posts all the way out. But don't forget, right here, we're going out to a T. So we have to pull another line, do the same thing again, and then we got to pull a line this way. All right, now that I have my lines on the pool, I've got to pull a string out here and actually put a decent amount of tension on it. So there's 2 things I could do. I could actually pull the string over, weight it, although it's going to try to slide up and down this because it's at an angle. I could tape it, but realistically, I know that's probably going to let loose. Screws are your best bet for wrapping string around, but nobody wants to screw into their pull cap. So luckily on the underneath side of mine, there is a lot of thick plastic, like 1 inch thick right here, so I can get a screw in. You will never ever see the hole after I remove it, and it's okay because there's hollow cavities all in this plastic cap anyways. So there. You'll never see that once I remove it. Don't forget there's a deck gonna be here anyway. All right, so now we're about to have to pull a really long string line right here, and I'm gonna let you in on one of my little secrets. Get yourself a kite string reel. It'll come with about 1,000 foot of line, although this is not a stretchy line, so I may be replacing this out with your regular mason string. But now we can hook this on screws that we put in up here. I can pull and run and twist, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do this right here. And when you're done, are you all sick and tired of fighting with those mason strings? Let me show you mine. They're so knotted up, they look horrible. So this is your typical mason string line. You put a loop in the end, you go hook it, you pull it forever, and then you have to wind it back up like this, hundreds of feet at a time. It gets in a wadded mess, it falls off. You just want to chunk these every job. Well, not with this guy right here. So it pulls out nice and easy, and then you've got a hand reel. You can reel your line back up. You can reel up hundreds of feet in just a few seconds. Now your string line is stored, ready to go. This is a tip that'll save you a lot of headache. I'm gonna put a screw in down here where I've got a reference line. All right, now I'll take this string, hook it right on this board, and then take off out here to the pool where I just made that other reference line and put the screw in. Wrap around. See how much easier this is to unwind than your regular mason string. I'm going to pull it really tight around this screw, make a couple of loops. Don't cut your line. A lot of people will cut your string. Leave this. I can make one continuous run with this 1,000 foot of line right here. Now I'm going to come over to this other screw that I put in, make a few loops around it, and then I'm going to take right back off to this other board right here. Now I'm going to pull tight, make a few overhand loops, make sure it gets over that string, not loosen up tension, and come right on to my next reference line. I should also mention this kite string has a lock too. You see how I was able to lock it on the spool, pull it tight and just set it up here? Because now I need to measure over 6 feet. There was no good way for me to get this final 6 foot measurement, so I can leave this locked in. And I'm gonna go 6 foot from this string. Now I know where to put another screw in, wrap, go all the way back around, do the same thing once again, and I have all my lines pulled this direction. All right, let me show you what I've done here. This worked out so good with this kite string reel. So I've got my screw in there. This is the very end of it. By the way, I can take it all the way back up the same way by reeling in and just zigzagging and walking, and I never cut my string. So this is why these batter boards are so important. You see my marker right there? Now I can reference that back. I can remove this string at any time I'm about to dig my post holes out after I mark them all. I can put this right back. And then when I set the post in the ground, I can set them to just bump the string so every post is in perfect order. So now you see what's missing? We need a string to go across this direction because there's going to be a T flare out there, and we're going to have posts coming across like this as well. All right, so now that I have these batter boards set up out here, I have pulled a tape measure off of the porch because I know I want the short run of porch to stop at 12 feet, and I've made a 12-foot mark on strings in 2 different locations. I'll show you this in a second because I have a special way that I do that. So the beauty of this kite string line here is, again, having like 1,000 feet or whatever it is, 600, 1,000, I can't remember. I can just keep continuing to pull. I never ever have to cut my line. So now we can come over here. I've already put a screw in on this board, pull it across, and I'm gonna come all the way over there to y'all. So I have 2 cotter pins out there on my strings. I'm gonna show you those in just a second that I can visibly see from all the way over here. So I'm gonna pull this line until it touches both cotter pins. I just made contact. So now, oh, it's a really good way to work by yourself. Now I can make a mark right here on my batter board. Put this kite string reel down here, shoot me a screw in, and we're good. You have to get really creative when working by yourself, trust me. I built an entire house by myself. I had to really start thinking outside of the box. Let me show you what I've done here. That worked out beautiful. So now, hopefully you can see our bright string is exactly 12 foot off the edge of the concrete. It's how I measured. And I took a couple of these cotter pins right here, and look, I found some that are really tight and clamped it right onto here. So I could pull my string tight. I was just visually checking this and pulling it, and when I seen that I bumped that cotter pin right there, we're good to go. You could also put tape on your string, but again, we're about to be unrolling this, putting it back, so I want something quick and removable. And you could mark your string, but the problem is you can't see that mark from all the way back here, but I can see this cotter pin shining in the sun, and I can see that one all the way down there. All right, now that I have all my cross points and intersections of strings, I know now mentally where I want to lay my post out, either inside of the corner or outside based on how I'm going to frame everything in. So now I can take some ground marking paint. It's the whole point of laying all this out. And I can mark where I'm going to come in and post hole dig. Then we'll remove all the strings. That was the whole point of making all these batter boards with reference marks. We can drill our holes, we can put the strings right back, set our post in, and set the post to the strings, making sure everything is perfectly plumb as we go along as well. So an hour or so later, this fat boy's out of breath. I dug the majority of the holes with the tractor post hole digger, which was awesome, but there was still a lot of holes that were too close to the slab and all these big holes that's right next to the pool that I couldn't get to with the tractor, so I had to hand dig all those out. There's nothing I hate more than a wobbly deck when you're on one. It just feels so shoddy, not well built. I'm trying to make for sure that does not happen with my deck. All right, here we go. The controversial part of this episode right here. I know I'm never going to hear the end of it. I am putting my posts directly in the ground and I'm packing concrete around them. Something that millions of people do with posts all the time. But there's this big controversy on the internet that, well, your post is just going to be rotted out in a couple of years. And if done incorrectly, you're correct. It is not good for the post. I am a true and firm believer. I've seen posts that's been in the ground a really, really long time around concrete, and I've seen them make it just fine. I'm a big believer if you're going to put your post in a hole and put concrete around it, you have to allow the post to free drain out the bottom. Think of a post, it's full of natural wood fibers which look like straws under microscopes. I used to deal with this back in my previous job. Those fibers will actually pull in and release moisture. If you seal the bottom of the post in concrete or in like a thick clay soil substance to where the post cannot free drain, you're going to have a rotted out post quickly. So one of the most important things you can do, put loose gravel like this number 5 rock that I have right here in the bottom, pack it in. You want to do about a 6-inch gravel bed. Then you want to place the post on the gravel before you put any concrete around it. If you fill a hole with concrete, set your post in it, you have just messed up. You have sealed off the very end of that post. Concrete itself is porous, so it will slowly absorb moisture and slowly release it, but it's so slow and retains so much moisture, it can rot a post out. Leave the bottom free draining for rainwater and all the other stuff to freely come out and for the wood to be able to naturally, freely flow out the bottom. It makes a difference, I promise you it does. We're going to be enclosing the side of our deck right here, so I did not want those concrete or sonotubes anywhere. Let's get to work. So like I said, in the bottom of every single hole I have out here, I'm going to put about 6 inches of this number 5 rock, and then we're going to pack it in because there's still loose dirt all down there, so that's why you got to make sure you put enough rock that whenever you pack it down in, well, you've got a good compacted layer, because some of it's going to go in that loose soil. All right, so I just set my first post right here, and I'll be setting the rest tomorrow because it's getting so late in the day, and I'll be working by myself again. So let me show you a quick way to do this. So typically you'd have one person holding the post while the other person checks level, packs dirt or concrete or whatever it is in around it, and then you move on to the next post. But I'm gonna need a set of helping hands since it'll be me by myself. So I just cut a 10-foot 2x4.5, and right there on the end you can see I've got a 3-inch screw ran through it. And I'll just screw this into the side of the 6x6, leaving it a little loose because I want this to be able to pivot. Now you can see what's going to happen as I hold the post up. See, it's wanting to fall that way, but the board just dug into the ground and it's holding it for me. But we got to work 2 different directions, so I'll screw another one into this side. Again, don't want to go super tight. By the way, I should also mention I've already packed my holes out. Remember we put the gravel in there? Just take the 6x6, pick it up and pack all the way around the hole using the weight of the post, pack the gravel nice and tight in the bottom. You're good. Now it's free draining, packed down there where it needs to be. If you don't pack that gravel, you're gonna have some weird settling issues once you get the weight of the deck on this. So now I can roughly move my post around, and you see I've pulled my string back. Remember the batter board we put in with the mark on it went from that string to the screw that's in the pool. And I'm spacing my post about a 1/16 of an inch off of that string. That way one post is not making contact with the string and pushing it out of the way. Should also mention I'm not worried about these screw holes going in the post either, because we're going to be putting sleeves over this post. So now with my post in the hole, I can get some measurements. So for example, since I know from the outside edge of this post to the outside edge of this one is 12 feet, because that's what I wanted to make my deck, that's how I drew it all down, I need to put this post in the dead middle at 72 inches or 6 feet. Got it just off the string. Now I have to start working the post in and out in order to find plumb. The string is also really good at helping you twist the post as well, because you can see when the post is not perfectly square with the string itself. All right, I've got it absolutely plumb. Everything is perfect both directions. Post needs to be twisted slightly. All right, so here's the thing. All we have to do is get it close. We don't need it perfectly plumb, although I like to get it to that point. And that's because, don't forget, these 2x4s are just helping hands. They're holding this roughly in place so I can pour this dry concrete mix around the post. Then we're going to pack that in. That's ultimately what's going to hold the post. And we can remove these helping hands. As long as nothing bumps the post tonight while the water's soaking in and setting up the concrete, we're good to go. And you can also get fast setting concrete. Quickcrete makes some, but it costs about twice as much a bag. If you're needing to work the same day that you're setting the post, that's a good alternative. Otherwise, you can get standard concrete mix. You can wet it, let it set up overnight. You're gonna have perfectly hard concrete in the morning, and you can go back to working on your deck. All right, so let's take a 80-pound sack of this dry concrete mix, put it right over the hole. Do not bump your post. All right, now we'll work this concrete mix all the way around. Double check we didn't knock the post out too bad with that. This way it needs to come in just a little. So now we can start packing in this concrete mix. Packing in just like you do sand, and this is gonna lock the post in. Have you a hose or bucket nearby? And you're going to want to put quite a few gallons of water in this hole so it soaks all the way down into this concrete mix overnight. And I might come back in a little bit and put more water in there as I see it soak up, because you got to keep in mind the soil around this is soaking the moisture up too, which is not a bad thing, because as the soil around the concrete soaks in moisture, it feeds the concrete. All right, now here's the cool part. I'm done with my helping hands. If I was wet setting concrete, as in already mixed it and did it, have it packed in here like this and just poured it in wet, I would need to leave these hands up. Actually, I would need to probably drive some stakes in the ground and secure every single post overnight. That would require a lot of these. But now that I have everything packed in there nice and tight, if I'll just be gentle removing these, now I can come on down to this next post right here and screw these right in and just repeat the process. Absolutely perfect. Just make sure nobody's going to come in the area and bump this overnight. No high winds or nothing crazy. This will be set up in the morning, perfectly plumb and ready for us to do some work on. So one other tip I want to share with you: whenever you're working alone, you have to come up with all kinds of creative ideas. Grabbing a hold of these posts, especially these big 12-footers, trying to pick them up, move them, it's aggravating. Definitely you need gloves in case you get splinters, but you just can't get a good grip. It's very hard to hold. They're just such heavy posts. Get you one of these like 3-inch choker straps right here. You can get them at Harbor Freight, Amazon, all kinds of stores. They're lifting straps is what they are. And these little short 3-footers are perfect for going around the post just like this. Go down toward the bottom, cinch it up, and then look, it gives you a loop and handhold over here. So you can pick this post up, pick up that strap, and manipulate around. It just gives you a much better hold. Really doesn't slip, and it's a lot better than trying to grab this heavy thing with 2 hands. All right, all posts are set in the ground, concreted in, and now curing. I'm very happy the way everything turned out. Everything looks nice and in order. The string lines really helped with getting everything nice and set up. Now we still have 4 more posts to set, but these are actually going to be below the pull cap level, and our floor joists are actually going to set on top of these posts for some extra support. So what you're probably noticing is these posts are way too tall, but I had a little bit of a dilemma. See, the property slopes quite a bit, and I wanted to get these posts through all this field dirt that I just hauled in and on solid packed ground. And I knew these 8-footers probably were going to be a little too short once I got way out here. So what I wanted was 10-foot 6x6s. Problem is, hardly nobody stocks a 10-footer. It's just a very odd size. So I had to go with 12s, what was in stock. So these are way, and I mean way taller than I need, but I kind of factored that into my design a little. Once we cut these off, don't forget, the deck will be somewhere in this area. Then we're going to have to leave the post up another 36 inches because we're doing 3-foot railing right here on the deck itself. So once I lob off the remaining few feet of 4 of these posts, that's actually what's going to go in the holes over here. So we're going to get some use out of it. Well, y'all, this was actually tougher than I realized it was going to be. Tackling all these by myself and setting them, well, it's taken me about twice as long as I was hoping for, not to mention it's unbelievably hot. I've already had to change clothes once today, go get a shower, and I'm working on a second set of clothes right now. But we got it knocked out. This is one of the most critical steps right here. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode and learned a lot from how to set some batter boards up here, run string lines, and picked up a few tips along the way. I'm just a homeowner building his own stuff. I'm not saying any of this is professional or by the book and exactly how you should do it, but I have picked up a few things along the years of building other things. It's going to be a little bit before I get part 2 out, which is where we're going to go in and do all the framing here and cut all these posts off the height. It's going to really start coming together at that point. I've got a lot of running around to do the next few days. I'll be recording it. It's for a completely different project and something else that's going on the channel. You may want to stay tuned for that as well. Then we'll jump right back on the deck. Catch you on the next video.